Hello everyone, it's DFA, welcome back to the channel, and yes, finally we are taking a look at the final part of my review of all the premium shop ships, all the premiums that you can buy at any time in the game, and we're going to be taking a look at the 10 tier 8, tier 9 and tier 10 ships that I still have to cover. As usual, I will be rating them from 1 to 3 stars and telling you if you should buy them and for what purpose. Immediately, let's get started with the first one. And the first one is the premium tier 8 destroyer, Le Terrible, that you can get for 9,000 gold. And what you are getting for 9,000 gold is a super fast destroyer. It's a kind of a hybrid between destroyers and light cruisers. It's typical of the French destroyer line, but unfortunately it's also very unforgiving. Make one positioning mistake and your life is gone bye-bye, as you can see. So you do get super good speed, but poor maneuverability. The guns are not bad for a destroyer. 10 kilometers range, a little bit more, so it's actually more on the gunboat side, but the torpedoes Alpha Strike is incredibly poor, even though you can actually shoot 9 of them, well 6, and then you have to turn around to shoot the remaining 3, but usually turning around will get you out of range, and so yeah, it's really not very convenient, to be honest. So Le Terrible, I did not enjoy it a lot, to be honest. I thought that, yeah, you can go anywhere you want, that's good, you can position yours, you can take any position you want, but once you get there, I found out that you were actually incredibly limited. And the carry potential of that thing is fairly limited as well. So there you will see me, for example, accelerating to more than 50 knots to take care of that Benson who's actually trying to cap our base, and that's nice. But I'm pretty lucky once I get there that, for example, it does not smoke up, because yeah, no, I could not have done a lot against it, to be honest. So now I do have an Italian battleship. It's going to go very quickly if it decides to commit suicide, which it's what it's doing. So yeah, you do get a rapid reload tree as well when you need that Alpha Strike to be dealing with destroyers at short range, but yeah, it's not something that you want to be doing, because your maneuverability will not let you dodge torpedoes. And now we can actually go back to the original crime scene where we were fighting the Alabama and the Roma next to the enemy cap. I'm going to fast forward. And here we are again on the other side of the map. I've activated my engine accelerator because I want to close the gap to that Alabama and see if I can actually remove it by giving it all the love I can with my torpedoes. And immediately you see the problem with that thing. Playing it at range, it's quite complicated because you don't have smoke. You really have to expose yourself quite a lot, and playing it as a DD, the Alpha Strike, it's simply not there. And trying to YOLO enemy ship, use your speed to YOLO, it will usually get you killed as well, because you simply do not have enough Alpha Strike to survive it, even if you put your 9 torpedoes on target. So eventually, Le Terrible, I'm going to give it 1 star out of 3. I think it fails both as a destroyer and as a light. It's trying to fulfill both roles, but it ends up fulfilling none of them. And yeah, the games with it, they were either quite interesting or complete garbage, because yeah, the carry potential of the thing is fairly limited. So Le Terrible, 1 star out of 3. Let's take a look at the next ship. And the next one is Tier 8 Pan-Asian Premium Destroyer, the Lo Yang. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. And what are you getting for 9,200 gold? You're essentially getting a Benson that drops its AA skill and a bit of AA for number 1, better concealment, and number 2, sonar. And that's absolutely amazing, because to be honest, the Benson is already a very good ship at tier 8, and what you're getting is actually a much better performance as a destroyer, because you retain all the qualities of the Benson. You've got good guns, good speed, good mobility, smoke charges, engine accelerator. You've got good torpedoes as well, only the torpedo range is a little bit on the low side, but the Loyang does get a better concealment than the Benson, so it's actually very good indeed. And what I also like about it is it's a fairly good trainer for the Pan-Asian line. So unfortunately you don't have a lot of choices for these lines, because the next one we are going to review is also a Pan-Asian ship, but this one is much better. So it's a very good trainer for the Pan-Asian line. It's full of qualities. I think it's a better Benson overall. Sonar is an absolutely amazing addition to any destroyer. And the alpha strike of the torpedoes is very, very good. The smoke lets you get away with mistakes, and there you go, you can even YOLO an Atlantico. That was before the nerf that this was recorded, but I don't care. I know that I do have the alpha strike to take him out. So Loyang, a fairly complete destroyer and an excellent trainer for the Pan-Asian line. I'm going to give it 3 stars out of 3. And now we are taking a look at the second Pan-Asian ship in the list, the Irian, the Tier 8 premium cruiser that you're getting for 12,000 gold. Those things are starting to get pretty expensive by now, so what are you actually getting with the Irian? You're getting some kind of a Russian cruiser. It does have the exact same characteristics as the Chapayev and the Kutuzov, but you are losing a bit of range. Actually not a bit, you're losing 1 kilometer of range. So you do get the same crappy speed, crappy maneuverability, crappy concealment, decent guns, quite decent guns, but you're not getting any precise aim charges, so you're actually a lot less efficient at range, and you do have less range, by the way. So what are you getting in compensation for that? You're getting torpedoes, 5 torpedoes with an increased range. It's close to 8 kilometers. And you're also getting a torpedo reload, so that allows you to put 10 of these torpedoes on target. And to be honest, you're going to do a lot of damage to enemy ships if you manage to get all 10 on target. But unfortunately, it's going to be quite complicated because you do not share any of the features of the Pan-Asian cruiser line. You're a pretty big target, you're not super maneuverable, you're certainly not stealthy. As you can see, dodging things with that, it's very complicated. Ouch. So usually using those torpedoes will get you killed either before you use them or right after you use them, but when you do put them on target, oh boy, do they deal a lot of damage. So the Irian, I really don't like it. I think it's very underwhelming because, yeah, number one, it does have a number of characteristics that are not really in sync with each other. Ideally, to make use of those torpedoes, you would have loved to have a faster, more maneuverable ship or a ship with a better concealment. And it's also not as good at range as its model, I mean the Russian cruisers. So concretely, it's also not a good playbook for the Pan-Asian cruiser. Yeah, there you go. Once you get them on target, you do deal a lot of damage. And I've only put 7 of them, but now I'm in a very, very precarious situation. It's not going to end very well. So the Irian, it's a real stinker for me, and I'm going to give it 1 star out of 3. I think there are much better options if you're trying to train Pan-Asian commanders, and we just reviewed one of them, by the way. So let's take a look at the next ship. And the next ship is the Mogami Premium Japanese Tier 8 Light Cruiser for 12,200 gold, and a ship that I really, really like. So what are you getting for those 2,200 gold? You're getting a Japanese cruiser that has 15 guns and 6 long-range torpedoes on each side. If that sounds very Japanese, it's because it is. It's a perfect playbook for the Japanese line. And so it teaches you how to use your guns, how to use your concealment, how to use torpedoes, where to position yourselves. It's essentially a very good teacher for the playstyle of the Japanese line. And now let's see if you've actually paid attention to my last videos on the topic. How do you play those things? You try to get a target to follow you. So essentially here you see me engaging that Atlantico safely behind one of the battleships. Once the battleship is deleted, I use my speed to run away. I keep putting him on fire and I shoot torpedoes, and that's how you play those things. You're always trying to get another ship to chase you, so you can actually put him in a lot of pain with your torpedoes. And sure enough, that's the end of that Atlantico. So, to be honest, it also does share all the limitations of Japanese cruisers. If CV warns you that there is not a lot you can do if a battleship manages to get a salvo on you, you're going to suffer a bit. Yeah, but there you go. I mean, it's not a super small target, huh? So it's not very well protected. So it can be a bit unforgiving, but to be honest, you do have all the tools to get away with it. Now let's see if you paid attention. What is the playbook of Japanese cruisers? You get battleships to follow you, and you troll them with your torpedoes. And that's exactly what we're doing right there with that Bismarck. He certainly is going to enter the cap and chase us, so we can we can anticipate its position fairly easily. I would say the difference between the Mogami and I would say the regular Tech 3 cruisers, it's the level of protection. And the Takao, for example, it's a lot more protected, but the Mogami is a lot more efficient at dealing with destroyers. You get 15 guns and precise aim. Once you manage to get one of those destroyers in your sights, I would say at close range, because you can certainly surprise them, you have a very good concealment, then you can really trash them very easily with your 15 guns. So yeah, it's a bit capable of everything. The only thing that it's not, I mean, it's very Japanese. It's not a fleet. It's not a fleet cruiser. It's not a fleet support ship. It's just a damage machine. And boy, does it excel at that. Let's see if we can repeat the same scenario on that Bismarck. Here you see that you do get the same crappy torpedo angles as you do get with other Japanese cruisers. So I think if you want to have an idea of what the Zao will be like, this is probably the best ship to do it, to be honest. It's a very good representation of the playstyle, and sure enough, we anticipate that this Bismarck is going to be traveling in a nice straight line. We're going to be punishing him with our guns, because yeah, the game is already lost, so we're just there to farm damage anyway. There's not a lot we can do at this stage. With only 1 minute and 20 seconds, let's see, there you go. That's another torpedoes on target, and you see that the damage numbers are going very quickly up. I'm going to slow down a bit, try to dodge its next salvo, and I'm not going to turn around right now. I want him to fire, and there you go. Now I can actually start turning around. Because yeah, Mogami, it's a fairly unforgiving ship. Make one positioning mistake and you're going to regret it for some time. But I mean, it's yeah, that's what the Japanese line is all about anyway. They're all paper tigers, so they're all incredibly good at dealing damage. But you just have to pick your engagements very carefully. And yeah, you remember what I was telling you about destroyers? Here is one that is brave enough to try to engage us at short range, and yeah, it's not going to end up very well for him. So Mogami, I'm going to give it 2 stars out of 3, because it's a very good representation of the Japanese line. Really, if you want to see what these things are like and get better at them, there is no better ship than the Mogami. But unfortunately, you also it does not function very well on confrontational map epicenter, etc. There you go. That was 10 seconds to delete the destroyer. On confrontation map center control, etc. It does not function very well. It's also not very good at dealing with CV. So 2 stars out of 3. Still a very good platform to learn about Japanese cruisers. Now let's take a look at another platform, this time a Russian cruiser, the Kutuzov Tier 8 Premium Russian cruiser that you see here with the beautiful winter camo, and that you can get for 12,400 gold. And what you're essentially getting for that is a Chapayev that trades its radar for smoke, and that gets better torpedoes. By better I mean that the range, it's not 4.5 kilometers, it's now 6 kilometers. So it's actually, I'm not going to say that it's usable, but it's certainly more it's certainly less pathetic than what you're usually getting at that tier with Russian cruisers. But unfortunately, you are paying a very heavy price for that torpedo range. Your accuracy, it's a lot less, it's really noticeably inferior to the Chapayev. And so what that concretely means is that you absolutely have to use the dispersion module on that thing. Because yeah, otherwise you're going to be otherwise you will be noticeably less accurate at range. And that's a bit of a problem because that's kind of the trademark of Russian cruisers. They're range ships, they're meant to be functioning at range. This one actually struggles at that, and yeah, that's a bit annoying. Also, the smoke, I don't like it, to be honest. Those ships are not really, I mean, it's just one smoke charge. I think the radar of the Chapayev is a much better option than the smoke of that thing. Because yeah, you're still a Russian cruiser, you're not maneuverable at all, and you're firing every 6 seconds or something like that, so yeah. any decent player will have absolutely no problem hitting your big ass into a smoke screen. The maneuverability is absolutely garbage as well, so yeah, the smoke, it's not going to help you very well. I honestly think that a fuel smoke would have been better. It would have helped you getting out of tricky situations, to be honest. But there you go. So Kutuzov, it's probably the weakest of the 3 long-range Russian cruisers that you're getting at tier 8, the Chapayev, Black Chapayev, this one. I'm not going to count the Bagration into it because it's a different playstyle. And to be honest, these are ships that are meant to be played at range, and you're giving up on a lot of ranged abilities there for a marginal benefit, because yeah, let's be honest, those torpedoes here, I actually found a gameplay where I'm able to use them, but that's really because I want to highlight the differences between that ship and the other one. Normally destroyers are not even able to get that close to you because you do have excellent guns to be dealing with them, but yeah. So there you go, Kutuzov, 1 star out of 3, don't buy it, get the Chapayev or the Black Chapayev instead. And the last tier 8 premium cruiser in the premium shop, it's the Prinz Eugen that you see here with the Azure Lane camo. Yes, you guessed it, my first CV was the Graf Zeppelin, my first battleship was the Scharnhorst. Can you guess what my first premium cruiser in the game was? Yeah. It was this one. I haven't really made it easy for myself, to be honest. Because yeah, Prinz Eugen, it's a tough one. It's a tough one, to be honest. So it's a copycat of the Admiral Hyper. What are the differences between the 2 ships? Well, the Prinz Eugen, it gets... it trades 1 precise aim charge for 1 AA, which is pretty much useless because honestly you're not going to stop or delete any planes with your AA, it's absolute garbage anyway. And you're also a bit more accurate if you're using the other camo, the Eagle camo, which gives you -4% dispersion. You're also a little bit more, you do get also a little bit more penetration than on the Hyper, but it's not really noticeable. So what you are left with is a typical German heavy cruiser. And by typical I mean that it's, I'm going to say that it's not very good, to be honest. It's not a playstyle that I particularly enjoy, it's a real support ship. The carry power of that thing is absolutely limited, you really have to watch out for your positioning, you have to adopt a very passive playstyle at the beginning of the game, and for example focus on ships that are looking at something else. But even when you manage to get yourself into such a situation as you see me here against that Odin, you see that the damage output, it's very underwhelming because yeah, it's a very typical heavy cruiser. The guns, you struggle against destroyer because you're stuck with AP. You're stuck with AP on those ships. The HE performance, it's the worst at tier 8. It's really not there. The HE damage, it's not good. The DPM, it's absolutely bad. And the fire chance, it's also very bad. And so typically, since you cannot really fire HE, you will end up using AP all the time, you will overpen destroyers, you will not be able to pen battleships unless you're able to hit their weak spots, so you end up, your best targets are other heavy and light cruisers, those are the ones that you're meant to be dealing with, but that means that you're also fairly matchmaking dependent. Yeah, so the Prinz Eugen, essentially you have to adopt an incredibly cautious playstyle at the beginning of the game, and it's only at the end that you can actually expose yourself and start trading your hit points. You see me there behind an island protected from the 2 battleships engaging the 2 cruisers that are my preferred targets, and we can certainly do very well against those targets. I mean, let's take a look at the salvo against that Saint-Louis. Precise aim, and sure enough we're going to be punishing him. But still, it's not, yeah, well, there you go, that's how you do it, baby. But still, if you think about it, because I have to rate that thing, and I'm hesitating between 1 and 2 stars, because it's a fairly underwhelming ship, but it's also a good representation of the German heavy cruiser line, I'm afraid. So yeah, if it's a good trainer for the German line. If that is your thing, if that is your playstyle, if you do not mind that passivity, then yeah, go for it. You will be a happy camper with that thing. But generally speaking, I've rated the Tier 8 premium cruisers. I haven't given them too much love, because unlike Tier 7, Tier 8, you do have a lot of excellent tech tree options. The Edinburgh, the Amalfi, the Cleveland is absolutely excellent as well. Takao is also not bad. What else do we have? I mean, they're all pretty good, to be honest, the tech tree cruisers. They're all pretty good. And so yeah, why would you want to absolutely get a premium cruisers at Tier 8? I'm not so sure, to be honest. I think the tech tree has much better options to offer than those. And if you are absolutely willing to buy a premium German cruiser at Tier 8, just try to get the mains. It's an overall better option than the Prinz Eugen. Yes, it's not as good as a trainer, but honestly it's much more versatile, and at least the mains can deal with destroyers. So Prinz Eugen, 1 star. And now we start taking a look at the only premium battleship at Tier 8 available in the premium shop, and it is the Tirpitz that you are getting for 14,400 gold. That's pretty expensive. Those things are starting to get expensive as of now. So, where do I start? You know, that thing is supposed, in real life it was the sister ship of the Bismarck, but in the game it's more like its retarded cousin, to be honest, because it's really underwhelming. It's inferior to the Bismarck in every possible dimension. It's less survivable, it takes a bit more damage than the Bismarck, it's less accurate at range, the guns are also dealing a bit less damage, and the secondaries are also not as good. And so yes, what are you getting as a compensation for that abysmal performance? You are getting torpedoes on each side of the ship. 4 pathetic torpedoes with a range of 5.4 kilometers. So needless to say, you're not going to be using them very often. So the Tirpitz, it's paying a very heavy price for those torpedoes, to be honest, because there's absolutely, yeah, there you go, you see me engaging that Atlantico, and that was before the nerf, by the way, so maybe the situation is a little bit better now, but that doesn't change the fact that the Tirpitz is very poor at range, because yeah, that Atlantico, it's really preventing us with a full broadside, a nice target, and it doesn't even have to try. I can barely damage him. I think I'm going to play the rest of the clip in a little bit faster, because it was incredibly frustrating playing that thing. And here we are at the end of that battle, and believe it or not, I've been trying to punch that Atlantico the whole time, barely damaged it, so yeah, it's... Okay, German ships are meant to... There you go. German ships are meant to be played at mid to short range. I perfectly understand, but what do you want me to do? You want me to start rolling an Atlantico? How do you think that's going to go? Seriously? No, to be honest, I mean, once you manage to get the Tirpitz into the right circumstances, it does perform very well. I'm going to show you an example of that in a couple of seconds, because not everything is bad with that ship. And it does get its moment, but seriously, there's nothing, and you could not do anything with it that you would not be able to do with any of the other German brawlers at the tier, and it's really hard for me to be recommending that thing, so yeah, let's move on. And here we are in a much better circumstance for the Tirpitz, because yes, what do we have in front of us? Iowa, North Carolina, those are ships that we can actually deal with. And so yeah, it's a very matchmaking dependent ship. But there you go, see the Iowa, it's not as well protected as the others, and immediately you can actually start dishing out some serious damage to these things. And you can use the landscape elements to get a little bit closer, to close the distance, and that is where you will absolutely shine. Yeah, because it's still a German brawler, you know, you can get those moments with it that are absolutely fantastic and fabulous, and you can really enjoy some of it. But yeah, it's just a bit more complicated to get into the right situations than all the others, to be honest. And I'm not sure that the game at this moment, with the introduction of the Atlantico, even though it's been nerfed, favors that kind of playstyle anymore, to be honest. So it's kind of hard to be recommending the Tirpitz, even though I'm going to let that clip play out because it's really fun. Watch it until the end. Those are the typical moments where you absolutely love German battleships, even though it's probably the most underwhelming of most. There you go, that's the Bismarck who wants to take a part of the cake as well, because yeah, here we have two American battleships that typically not very good at short range, and we're certainly going to be dishing out quite a lot of damage. There you go, you see it piling up immediately, very quickly. Bam, all the guns, main guns, secondaries, auto secondaries, all the time. Absolutely fantastic performance there, and we still have one to go. There's a North Carolina there quietly waiting for us. We're going to rush towards him as fast as we can, precise them to soften you up a little bit before we get into brawling range, and sure enough the circus starts again. So yes, the Tirpitz, it's difficult for me to recommend it, because it's essentially worse than the Bismarck in every possible way. There are other premiums at tier 8 that are doing a better job at brawling than that thing is, to be honest. It's not a competitive ship at range. It's also pretty expensive, 14,400 gold for that thing. I'm not seeing anyone pay that kind of money for it. It really needs a bit of love from Wargaming, to be honest, because even though you can get it into some really nice brawls and situations, it's pretty underwhelming as a ship, and there's no real reason for me to buy it. Tirpitz, 1 star out of 3. Let's move on to the tier 9s. And the only tier 9 ship in the premium shop is actually the Benham, the American premium destroyer. What are you getting for 15,000 gold? You're essentially getting an American destroyer. It's a bit, the guns are a bit underwhelming on that thing. They're not very good, but what you are getting are 8 torpedoes on each side of the ship. So it has the characteristics of American destroyers, meaning that it's an all-rounder. You get 3 smoke charges, which is very good at tier 9, engine accelerator, decent mobility, maneuverability, etc. It's all good, concealment is nice, torpedo range 8 km, certainly workable, but those torpedoes are incredibly slow. They're actually shooting mines, but you're shooting a lot of them, really a lot of them. Because yeah, you're reloading every 50 seconds, so essentially you're kind of always in a position to be shooting either from the left side or the right side of the Benham, using your 8 torpedo tubes on each side. So yeah, it's and you can actually rotate in your smoke screen to be using those 16 torpedo tubes. So they're not going to deal an incredible amount of damage, they're not going to hit very often, to be honest, because yeah, the speed 57 knots, it's not as bad as the other American tier 9 premium destroyer, the Black, which I think it has 47 knots in terms of torpedo speed, but still you do have to lead quite a lot with these torpedoes. They're a bit more complicated to get on target, but you're going to compensate with the massive amounts of torpedoes that you will be shooting all the time. So it's an incredibly annoying ship to be playing against, because you never know what you're going to get. You absolutely cannot get close to it. You have to avoid it at all costs. Because yeah, you never know when you're going to get shot. You just know that those torpedoes are going to come at some point, and there will be a lot of them, and it will be completely unpredictable. So there you go. The Benham, it's quite fun to play. I'm going to give it 2 stars out of 3. Why not 3 stars? Well, because there's already quite a lot of absolutely excellent American premium destroyers that you can get. So in the premium shop you do have the Sims, which is an absolutely amazing learning platform. So if you're trying to learn about the playstyle of American destroyers, go get the Sims instead. And at tier 10 you do get the Sommers, one of the best destroyers in the game. You can actually do what the Benham is able to do, shoot 16 torpedoes, but it doesn't have to turn around to do it, they're all on the same side. So yeah, it's just the only thing that's holding back the Benham, to be honest, but otherwise it's a fun ship to play, and it's incredibly annoying to be playing against. Now let's take a look at the tier 10s. And we start with the Buffalo Tier 10 American Heavy Cruiser, 25,000 gold. What are you getting for 25,000 gold? You're getting a Des Moines with an extra turret, but with a longer reload, so the DPM is actually fairly comparable. But you're also getting an extra kilometer range, and that is what allows me to engage that Mino effectively, something that the Des Moines would not have been able to do unless it was using its legendary module, but then you would not be using the dispersion module. So because here I'm playing that thing with the dispersion module, so essentially it's performing better than the Des Moines at range. And it's actually what that thing is. It's a damage dealer. It gets all the attributes of the American heavy cruisers. It gets the rapid reload. It's actually decently accurate. If you look at it, you're certainly able to deal damage to enemy ships with AP and HE, so that's perfectly fine. What you do not have, however, is you do not have the radar of the Des Moines. So yeah, Buffalo, it's a good ship. I've really enjoyed playing it, to be honest. I've been doing very well with it. And you see that it's certainly very capable. That's where you get the difference between Des Moines and this thing. 12 guns on target instead of 9, even though you do get a longer reload, but you're broadside and you're actually much more efficient at smashing things that come a little bit too close to you. And sure enough, we do, there you go, maneuverability. It's still quite alright. We can dodge torpedoes, no problem. And now we can actually deal with another Des Moines. So you can see the differences between the two ships. And we're certainly able to sustain the engagement. You see us putting quite a lot of shells on target, so that's the effect of the dispersion module there. It's certainly very capable at range, quite capable. Of course, you're still going to struggle hitting destroyers at range. It's still an American cruiser, but I mean, for those you have to get a little bit closer, and that is where you see the difference with the Des Moines. You do not have that radar anymore, and so it can get a little bit tricky to go after destroyer. It's a lot less of a support ship than the Des Moines is, and I'm certainly not going to compare it with the Worcester, but it's still very good. And here we are faced with the Fletcher, but you see that there it is, and can maybe put a couple of shells on target, not even close, and is running away, is getting away with it. So that's where not having a radar certainly will hurt us. I'm going to give it 2 stars out of 3, because honestly, it's a good ship, it's a very good damage dealer, but that's all that it is. It loses a lot of the support potential that the Des Moines actually had, and you actually have to change a little bit your targets, because there you go, that destroyer, I'm going to take a salvo, that's fine. That's the 12 guns on target, by the way, it's going to go down very quickly. Yeah, there you go, very efficient at deleting enemy destroyers, but they have to be spotted first, and here, if it had been a Japanese destroyer, I would not have been able to make that kind of play. So, Buffalo, very good, but 2 stars out of 3. And here we are, the final ship of this review. It's the Thunderer, which I've already reviewed on my channel, but in the meantime it's been buffed, so we're going to talk about it again. And we should, because it's been massively improved. What did Wargaming do to it? Well, essentially they decreased the reload of that thing. It's now, I think it's around 17.5 seconds base. So that has 2 implications. That has increased the numbers of fire per minute that you can actually cause quite dramatically. So you now are the 2nd best fire setter at tier 10. The first one is the Conqueror. They've also increased the turret rotation, if I'm not mistaken, from 4.5 to 4.9. Okay, it's always welcome, that's very good indeed. And they've also increased the short range AA, which combined with your AA skill, man, CVs are going to leave you alone, because they're not going to. They know that they will be using quite a lot of planes if they decide to target you. And I would say that the main difference between the Thunderer and the other British battleships at tier 10 is that this one is actually fairly well protected. Yes, it doesn't have German levels of armor, but it can certainly take a bit of damage, and certainly more than the Conqueror, who essentially has no armor and is very tricky to play for that reason. The other things that the buffs did to the Thunderer, it's, well, two things. So the first one is, you know that the British battleship line, it's a rapid reload line, and this one is a precise aiming ship, but now that your reload is well under 20 seconds, you do not need a dedicated commander to take full advantage of precise aim. You can certainly manage it within the 17 seconds reload, and so that means that it's now a much better crew trainer than it was before, so you can actually use it to train your British battleship crews. That's number one. And number two, now that you're causing so many fires, you can actually, you know, the trick with British battleship is to know which target you have to treat with HE and which others you have to treat with AP. For example, the cruiser a little bit earlier, the Saint Louis, I could have treated it with AP and dealt more damage. But yeah, now you don't really need to think too much with that thing anymore, because you can engage anything with HE if you don't mind, not optimizing your damage, and you're still going to have a fairly solid performance, simply because of the number of fires that you're actually going to set. It's also equipped with a sonar, and that can be quite useful, because you can guess what that Shimakaze has been doing to us. He has very bad intentions towards us, and yeah, you can probably guess that the torpedoes are going to arrive at some point in time. So yeah, it's a much improved platform. It's certainly a very good ship. It has a lot of damage potential. It can get into caps. It can survive a lot longer than the other British battleships. It can certainly punish destroyers, because yeah, you're still shooting HE at everything. So yeah, it's a much more capable platform, and I've really enjoyed replaying it. It was really I'm not sure what they buffed it in the first place, probably to make sure that it could keep up with the other British battleships, but yeah, honestly, now it's a very good boat, and it's a very capable ship. So I have absolutely no problem giving it 3 stars out of 3. If it wasn't for the price, I would have bought it probably a long time ago, but yeah, there you go, because 29,000 gold is still quite a lot of gold, but yeah, I mean, it is what it is, right? It's a tier 10 battleship, it's a tier 10 premium ship, so of course it's going to be expensive, but at least you don't have to buy any crates to get this one. So there you go, bam, that's another fire on that Alsace. I mean, it's yeah, how many fires do we have? We have like 47 shells and 9 fires already into that game. So yeah, it's massively improved, to be honest. So yeah. There you go, Thunderer, 3 stars out of 3 and another fire. And that actually concludes my review of all the premium shop ships. I hope you've enjoyed it, learned a couple of interesting things. It certainly was very interesting to make for me. It took a lot of time collecting the right footage for all those ships, because if you think about it, yeah, it's 35 ships that I had to review in 3 videos. So yeah, it's a ton of preparation, it's a ton of scripting, it's a ton of finding the right footage to illustrate what I want to show. But I hope it will help you make better buying decisions than the ones I certainly made when I started playing Blitz a couple of years ago, and yeah, for that reason I hope you find it useful. So there you go, stay safe, take care, that was DFA signing out, bye bye!